Hello, guys and gals, me Mudahar, and how is it going, ladies and gentlemen? Now, of course, I've been back. I've been out for the weekend. I've been out in old California over there. Just personal stuff. But, ladies and gentlemen, if it's something that I've seen in California a bunch, are super expensive clothing stores. Now, why is it that my gaming self is talking about Balenciaga? Yeah, normally I don't really care about these super expensive clothing stores, but Balenciaga has kind of been in the middle of a bit of a creepy conspiracy theory, if you will. And I wanted to sit down and get really into the facts of the situation. Because while I was out this weekend, a lot of wild stuff tends to happen. And of course, this is the thing that caught my eye. And I wanted to look into it while it was basically fresh in everyone's head. So we can kind of sit over here and look at some of what the facts actually are and what might be the misinformation in this case. Now, for somebody who doesn't know Balenciaga is, of course, a massive clothing brand. If you want to see what's up with them, we'll go to their new arrival section, just so I can put into perspective what kind of a company we're talking about. Here, they're selling you a hoodie that literally looks like you were on Skid Row. Now, if you click onto this hoodie, okay, I'm just going to list you the price real quick, okay? What do you guys think the price for this, homeless hoodie-looking design is? Is it 20 cents? $2? $20? No, try $16,000. Sorry, $1,650. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you're talking about a four-figure check over a rack to look homeless. Again, I don't understand why people buy clothing like this, but then again, hey, the world is your oyster. You do what you want to do, baby, okay? Live your life the way you want to live it. But of course, Balenciaga has been caught up in the news because they've apparently had an advertising campaign that's actually since been removed, where they were using children and they were having them sort of positioned up with some questionable looking teddy bears and of course some very questionable court cases. So let's sit down and look at what actually happened. So for instance, one of the actual posts was from this campaign. Now, this is actually from two separate campaigns that they've done. These are actually not linked together. These images, while they are placed together in various posts, they do come from entirely separate, entirely separate campaigns. So one of them is this child, and of course I'm going to blur out the children completely because I don't feel comfortable showing these children. So of course, in this image right over here, the kid is holding what appears to be this teddy bear. Now the teddy bear, if you look closely, some people have said this is like fetish or bondage gear, if you will. Now if you look at it, they've got some chains, some straps. I mean, the thing kind of looks like Mr. Slave from South Park. Very, very questionable. What I find a little bit more scary than the teddy bear is the same kid laying across in this other photograph, where of course they've got Budweisers, wine glasses, champagne glasses, a lot of these adult, things around these children. Kind of weird, all right? Not kind of weird, actually pretty weird. Yeah, they got like a dog bowl over here too with like spike collars around it. In fact, according to this one article that was reviewing this, believe it or not, that was $900 apparently, allegedly for that dog bowl. Jesus Christ. Rich people can be very stupid. Now, of course, the further you went down into this rabbit hole, the scarier it actually ended up, I guess, appearing to be. For instance, in this one situation, the kid also has another teddy bear, of course, this time with like what appears to be fishnets, the same sort of like straps around it. I would say this is more like emo, maybe scene, if I had to be the most charitable in the situation imaginable. Now, of course, thankfully, there is a distinct lack of alcoholic beverages and drinking utensils. But of course, utilizing children in this doesn't really make any sense. And I think 99% of the outrage for this came from the fact that you had children in these entire promotional materials. Had they just used adults, they probably wouldn't have been in so much trouble. Now, where it gets really, really scary is from this other entire advertising campaign. So you can see right here, you've got an entire purse. Okay, now everything looks fine over here. This purse is basically placed onto this desk with a bunch of different items, okay? You've got little pocketbooks. I think that might be a passport, trophies, paperwork. But if you actually zoom into some of the paperwork directly, ladies and gentlemen, this is where it gets a little bit sus, okay? Now, if you can't read this, all right, this is a court case, okay? This is actually a Supreme Court case. In fact, if I can find a better image for you, which I will right here, it'll actually show you a few pieces of text you can read. So here you can see 553 US 2008, okay? It is occurring sexual, okay, but rather sexual, even though it actually have. So obviously, it's something related to something sexual. You've got the words pornography. You've also got free speech coalition. So again, of course, it takes, 5 minutes for you to actually go onto the internet and research this law for yourself, this case for yourself, which is exactly what we're going to do. Now, this case is known as United States v. Williams, okay? And this is a case that was decided in 2008, May 2008. So it's a pretty old case. So of course, let's actually look into an educational write-up, okay, from the First Amendment Encyclopedia. Okay, so let's read this together. In United States versus Williams, the Supreme Court upheld part of a federal law known as the Prosecutorial Remedies and Other Tools to End the Exploitation of Children Today Act of 2003. Okay, so PROTECT, better known as the PROTECT Act, finding it was not in violation of the First Amendment right to free speech or expression. A key provision of PROTECT prohibits anybody from advertising, promoting, presenting, or distributing adult materials, illegal materials, even if the underlying material does not actually constitute said illegal material. It was called the pandering provision, also the promotion, if you will, just for, just for a more simplified term. Congress passed the PROTECT Act in response to the court's decision in Ashcroft v. Free Speech Coalition 2002, which is what was referenced in the Balenciaga ad, in which the court struck down two provisions designed to address the evils of virtual illegal materials created without the use and harm of actual children. The Williams case involved the prosecution of Michael Williams, who told an undercover Secret Service agent over the internet that he had sexually explicit pictures of their minor daughter. A resultant search revealed that Williams indeed possessed numerous examples of illegal materials. He was charged both with the possession of illegal materials and with pandering, so promotion, under the PROTECT Act. He pleaded guilty but reserved the right to challenge the constitutionality of the pandering provision, so the promotion. A federal district court rejected his challenge, but the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals reversed in United States v. Williams, 2006, finding that the statute was overbroad and vague. So this is where the Supreme Court of the United States jumped in, and they protected that pandering promotion, okay? They upheld it. Scalia, okay, who wrote for the majority, explained that offers to engage in illicit transactions are categorically excluded from First Amendment protections. He added that offers to provide or request to obtain illegal materials are categorically excluded from the First Amendment. To Scalia, it did not matter that somebody could be criminally charged for bragging that they had illegal materials, when in actuality they did not possess such materials. He analogized situations in which individuals may offer to sell illicit drugs even when they do not possess such contraband. Offers to deal in illegal products or otherwise engage in illegal activities do not require First Amendment protection when the offerer is mistaken about the factual predicate of his offer. Now again, ladies and gentlemen, obviously this is where the Supreme Court is holding up as much as they can regarding any illegal materials. Now, that legal case to me, and I'm not a lawyer or a legal expert in any capacity, but to me it sounds like the Supreme Court is holding up that you cannot promote things even if you don't possess them. You can't promote the sale of illicit materials, and even if you don't have them, it's not like your First Amendment is protected or whatever. It actually just feels like they're clamping down on anything bad, which again is something that I'm totally okay with. But let's get back to the facts of Balenciaga. So again, these are photo shoots that are done in promotion of a lot of these materials. Now, ever since this was called out, Balenciaga actually did remove their social media posts. So if you actually go to Balenciaga's page, you'll find out that those teddy bears weren't actually available. So if you go to Balenciaga's Instagram, you can see that currently they only have 9 posts, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it's not loading up anymore in any capacity. So, of course, this raised some suspicions. People wondered, oh my God, are they trying to remove any form of evidence? Now, if you know anything about Balenciaga, or really any of these brands in general, they will remove their posts and then hype you up for new posts as part of newer drops. Their entire business works in hype, speculation, and releasing newer drops year after year. You ever realize how some of these clothing, brands, or some of these clothes that are a year old are like 70% off in like outlets? That's because they're out of fashion. Once they create something new for dumbasses to buy, then they can start the promotion cycle again. So this is actually a post that it took me 5 seconds, 5 seconds to find out in 2021, September, why they were actually erasing their Instagram again. So again, it wasn't even the first time they did it in 2021. Of course, you can see in just this image, they had 7 posts? The art of editing or erasing social media feeds is often attributed to when a new designer takes over a maison, like Hedi Slimane at Celine or Bottega Veneta when it launched its own magazine. Erasing a history of images during the tenure of the same designer is less common. But Balenciaga creative director Demna Gvasalia has continued to reinvigorate the brand since his departure from Vetements. In the case of Bottega, creative director Daniel Lee chose to delete not only posts, but its entire accounts altogether, choosing when to release images and information, focusing on old-school public relations, word of mouth, its own digital journals, and exclusive salon shows where mobile photography is strictly prohibited. So again, it's mostly a promotional tactic that Balenciaga and of course many other clothing brands do tend to use, okay? And again, this isn't just on Instagram. They deleted their Facebook posts and even their Twitter posts. The only thing that survives any form of social media cleansing, if you will, is their YouTube page, which doesn't actually face any form of removal. You can actually check out Balenciaga's actual YouTube page for yourself. Again, you can even see from July 2021, there were other posts about why Balenciaga kept wiping out their social media presence. It wasn't because they were just caught with their pants on. I mean, that was one of the reasons, but obviously this is a history, this is a pattern that they actually did do. And it's not something that I saw floating around in the conspiracy, so I wanted to add it for context's sake, okay? Because I feel like when you want to talk about anything, you have to have all the context, otherwise there's just no point discussing it, okay? You have to have all the facts, or as much as you can presented. So obviously I wanted to add this into context because obviously you came across some larger creators. This one is like Shoe on Head, who is like, they deleted all their Instagram posts, LMAO. Now, while it does seem shady, with the added context I just showed you, it should make some sense as to why they did it. It wasn't just necessarily to hide the crazy conspiracy. It was because that's their promotional style for the last like almost 2 years. Now, the story eventually got picked up by Tucker Carlson over at Fox News, which effectively is one of the highest syndicated shows last I checked on Just TV and even on YouTube as well too. So of course this was shared there, and of course there started to be various TikTok accounts where like this information was just being shared around by various individuals. So for instance, just looking at Balenciaga, there was plenty of people showcasing the actual like this actual conspiracy, right? And of course, it is something that's super wild to look into, okay? It was also on YouTube Shorts. You get the idea. And of course, people started to bring in various conspiracies into it. So for instance, some of the super wild ones were actually this one, where symbolism is disgusting. So zoom in on the artwork, it's satanic. Scope the shelf and you will see the devil. The red shoes, we know what they represent. The teapot represents Alice in Wonderland. So does the rabbit. The duct tape and the cords represent human trafficking. Again, if we're talking about doing like, I guess image recognition, if you will, or like word association, then sure. But that's really not a causal link to anything. Of course, when they're talking about Satanism, it's one of this image where like the kid is standing in front of like these various clothing or like these articles again. And of course, if you look closer into this cabinet, you can see like you've got Satan over there in the corner. Again, super wild. And I really feel like a lot of this may just be like edgy, sort of like shock advertising. But of course, let's look even further. One of the wild conspiracies at this point, too, was actually this one, where they looked at another Balenciaga ad, and they zoomed into the desk where they found the words Etro Management. So, of course, they linked it to Metro Management Services, LLC, which is a premier boutique property management firm in Northern Virginia. And of course, they looked in from Northern Virginia into like the city of Washington, D.C. and said, listen, 2,200 kids go missing in D.C. every year. Again, these are reaches that are insane at this point. There's no causal link between, hey, Balenciaga hired out a company from Northern Virginia. Also, a major city in the United States has a missing children problem. I guarantee you, I would bet my testicles that this problem also happens in cities like Dallas, in cities like Seattle, in cities like Los Angeles, New York, Phoenix, Miami. You get the point, okay? Missing children, unfortunately, is a reality in most major metropolitan areas, sadly. So again, when you start seeing conspiracies like this, it's time to really look into the facts. The reason why I'm sort of giving you all this information is so that we can actually look at it with extra context around this. Now, of course, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this does not excuse Balenciaga whatsoever. So, of course, looking into this, Balenciaga did actually give one apology. All right, so let's read their apology. We sincerely apologize for any offense our holiday campaign may have caused. Okay. Our plush bear bags should not have been featured with children in this campaign. So this weird, like bondagey, like sort of strapped, fishnets, those teddy bears should not have been with children in the campaign. We've immediately removed the campaign from all platforms. Okay. We apologize for displaying unsettling documents in relation to that Supreme Court case in the campaign. We take this matter very seriously and are taking legal action against the parties responsible for creating the set and including unapproved items for our Spring 23 campaign photo shoot. We strongly condemn abuse of any children in any form. We stand for children's safety and well-being. Obviously, like any other company, they would obviously make that statement simply because what are they going to say? Hell yeah, we support abusing anybody, guys. Come on now. No, of course they would make that statement. Now, of course, one of the things that's really questionable is being that this is a photo shoot. One thing that we can question is obviously this went through a bunch of different people, right? When you're doing a photo shoot involving children, animals, really anybody, there is a lot of red tape to cross and a lot of T's to cross, a lot of I's to dot, if you will. And then obviously, you've got photographers, directors who come in, who design the set, who place all of these items in a specific way, who compose an image and take a photo of it. So you've got those people who are producing the photo, and then you've got a legal team that probably looks at the photo before it ever goes live. You've got the marketing people. You've got the website people that are actually responsible for taking the image from the photographer, putting it onto a website, and then basically exporting it and making it live for users to access. In between that entire chain of human people, no one stepped in and said this was a little questionable. Nobody looked closer into things like that document, which they could have easily replaced with anything like some random word salad, like from lorem ipsum word salad, and gotten away with it, right? And of course, to utilize children is a bit questionable. Obviously, there's a lot of red tape that happens. You got to get parents involved. You got to find these children. You probably have to go to an agency. And then, of course, if you didn't want to have children at all to begin with, why were we even funding the photography of them as part of this advertising campaign? Maybe they just handed a blank check out to an advertising firm and they just decided to go crazy. And now Balenciaga's sort of holding the entire proverbial bag, so to speak, where, they basically have shit on their face because of their advertising decision. And now they're actually looking at legal action. But one thing that I do have to say is, again, this went through a bunch of different people. How this was ever approved and sent out is beyond me. And part of me likes to think that maybe this is like shock advertising so people can talk about Balenciaga. Because when you got my ass talking about Balenciaga, then you got to imagine that it's blown up to an extent, because I'm the furthest person that could give any shits about this to begin with. But obviously, when you put your thinking caps on, it's not good at all to have your brand tarnished with this kind of a conspiracy floating around you. Now, I don't want to jump into the Balenciaga sort of defense force here. I don't want to make it sound like that, because in reality, I have nothing connected to it. It is weird to see certain props like these Lego blocks just placed here in this shot. Again, the whole idea of like, were kids supposed to be in this to begin with? I don't necessarily buy it, because if kids were not allowed in it, again, how would you produce these images with these children present? Also, if kids weren't supposed to be in that advertising campaign, why even have it uploaded and turned live on your website or even out there for the public-facing consumer? I think whoever's behind a lot of this needs to be sort of looked into. I don't think the entire Balenciaga corporation is necessarily to throw into the fire, but I think there are some key executives that let this go by. And also, there has to be the photographer and the entire production team, which apparently they are doing legal work with, like legal proceedings with, because of all this. I think a lot of these people really need to be looked into. A lot of this stuff felt like it was very Easter eggish, like it was placed there with reason. Again, nobody has court cases that specific printed out and then, of course, thrown into corporate branding. Even when it comes to like our small rinky-dinky YouTube channels, even when we're posting something or I look at something, like for instance, if I get somebody else to edit a video, I'm going to watch the whole goddamn video before I ever make it live, which is one thing that I would expect Balenciaga to do when they are promoting some of their high-profile clothes. It's not like the company doesn't have the money to hire people to audit this shit. They clearly do, so somehow this got slipped up and passed. And it's one thing to sort of question, obviously, the more and more you look into it. Now, of course, I'm not going to jump into the wild world of linking this to conspiracies that have no complete direct causal links, but I am going to look at this, very suspiciously going forward. If I was ever interested in buying Balenciaga clothing, I'm far away from ever purchasing anything from them, just given how shady this one advertising deal went. And I wish more people kind of talked about it. They are. I definitely see it in a lot of news sources around. I definitely see people discussing it. But it's just something too creepy and too shady for me to just walk away from. So I wanted to get my piece out. I wanted to discuss it. I wanted to just sort of get all the facts together. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.